Deleted Session, December 1, 1980. Now, Robert wondered the other day what my own attitude might be toward the famous disclaimer, and I began to tell him. I had intended to mention the affair again in any case, but once more I am reminded that many facts are self-evident to me, while at your end they are highly questionable. And so your attitudes are bound to be covered in ways that mine are not. Your existence is protected. Your works are protected. Those statements are self-evident to me, while you of course are still in the process of thinking them over and trying to fit them into the context of life as you know it. To that extent, then, of course, our attitudes would be different. In any case, when you were first working with Frameworks 1 and 2, you saw many examples of Framework 2's activities as they impede into your reality, and you were quite pleased. Your living experiences often gave you clues one way or another that added to the thematic material. Now, any disclaimer would not insult me. The entire idea of the disclaimer is a living example of the book's thematic material. It shows the elements of the society that we have criticized in action. It becomes almost an exterior extension of the book itself. Certainly, it shows why the ideas in the book are so important at this time. I consider such a disclaimer as a mildly amusing case in point, a living example, almost as if indeed you had requested one, a proof of the pudding. There is more involved. Our work has achieved enough notice so that it is indeed considered to have some effect upon your society. Otherwise, no disclaimer would be considered. That means that we have made inroads, that we are reaching people, and that even the Prentice legal department is aware of our readership. In other words, the books are considered to have some social life. You are, or we are, certainly criticizing many of the aspects of your society. In that particular book, Rob noted mass events. They said, rather powerful, honored aspects, and the criticism will meet criticism. At the same time, as the book's criticism has a good import, so is the disclaimer in its fashion a creative example, again, of the book's premise, and also would serve for that matter in a way that may not have been anticipated. With the disclaimer, the book may well sell more copies by far than it would otherwise, for people will be curious about what such a volume might contain that will be dangerous to the public good. When you realize that you are indeed protected, such issues are absorbed along the way. They are actually changed in character, so that they work for your benefit rather than against it. It is extremely difficult for me, however, to make you understand quite clearly the role that your own attitudes play, for when issues hit close to home, you have both the old tendency to blame the other party or parties for what is involved. That means that you read the involvement in a certain fashion that only seems to prove your point. Because the book met criticism, Apprentice does not mean that you or it were not protected. The word protection in this context is interesting, of course, since the disclaimer is supposed to protect Prentice from any court action. It is in its fashion an attempt at protection at that level. The level is one where every bit of Preventative protection is needed in a world where people constantly need insurance. Preventative medicine, and so forth again, all issues dealt with in the book. The disclaimer is also Prentice's way of allowing itself some freedom thematically, without getting its feet wet in any possible court actions. The company, as stated, is in its fashion a capsule of your society and its present climate. The disclaimer in no way lessens the power of impact of the book. It only manages to stress many of the pertinent issues, and in its way it would point out the situation quite clearly. No one is seriously concerned about the possibility of a person dying of a disease because they followed any of the evidence given in the book. They are afraid to some extent of being sued for such a purpose, because they themselves dwell in a mental situation in which flies are everywhere, in which all precautions must be taken. Lawyers deal in a world of limited, fairly well-established facts. Those facts may be imaginatively assembled at times, but they are very slow to accept the inclusion of any new data, and they must be backers of the establishment for which, of course, they obtain their position. I am making no recommendations, but helpfully adding to the information that you have at hand, and offering another framework from which you can view the situation. Your feelings about it are as important as your actions. You have every right to call them on any points you desire, of course. In the overall cultural picture, psychic matters are no longer as easy to dismiss as they used to be. People's curiosity has been aroused, and the established methods of gaining knowledge have been found less than satisfactory. So in a fashion, the idea of the disclaimer is a kind of backhanded recognition. You and your works are protected. Your lives are aware as they are meant to be. You have made no great errors in your lives. You are doing what is right for you. If you accept those statements as true, then you will begin to feel an emotional sense of rightness with yourselves. You will drop habits of self-disapproval. You can even take it for granted that intellectually you may not know all of the reasons for your own actions. This does not mean that you do not know the reasons. They might not ever appear intellectually to you. They might very well be felt and understood emotionally, however, or intuitively once you cease habits of disapproval and constant intellectual questioning about such seemingly hidden motives for your actions. Briefly, again, help reassure Ruber that his body does know what it is doing. He does need that reassurance now. The legs and the entire lower portions of the body have been in a constantly changing state of late, as the legs and knees do begin to gain more motion. This causes all kinds of alterations of muscles and joints and so forth. The vibrator under this area will be beneficial. Rob said, "Can I ask a question?" They said, "You may." Rob asked, "Has he been reacting physically to this disclaimer business?" They said, "To the extent that he questions his own natural protection." Give us a moment. You are dealing with two issues also, the natural person, the creator, the artist. In Ruber wants the book out without any interruptions, and cares little about other issues. The socially knowledgeable person does not want to be taken for a fool. be insulted and wants to be treated with respect. To some extent, that is a simplification, of course. Nothing is that simple, but the explanation does serve to clarify contradictory issues. Certainly, the entire affair is to be used creatively. Art, including writing, of course. Creativity itself is bound to be, as per the Seth passage, sometimes disruptive. It brings into being that which was not there before. It rearranges some aspects of the world, and it is in its fashion as brilliant as a child's clear eye. It sees truth clearly because it does. Art can often make disclosures that offend the pious and well-mannered. Robert's own passages about the television preacher are a case in point. They upset him to some extent, not for himself, but because he did not want to hurt other people who so believed in the dogma that he was disclosing to the world. It is very important that you learn to trust your own creativity and your own vision and allow it its expression, for it will always lead to a more fulfilling vision and obsession, unless you have another question. Ralph said, "Nope." They said, "Then I bid you a fond good evening." Ralph said, "The same to you, Seth. Thank you very much. Good night."